Welcome back to the IU427 garage, everybody. Today we're working on the Texas car and we're going to be installing the gas tank. Okay, gas tank. So before I pull everything out of the boxes, let me go over some of the parts we have sitting on the back of the Texas car for you. Of course, in the box we have the tank and the liner. And then I believe in here is also the fuel tank straps. We have the fuel pump. So as supplied from Factory 5, this is a 255 liter per hour pump. We have the plastic, protectors for the bottom of the tubes. These are square plugs that go in the bottom of the open 3/4 inch tubing that supports the upper portion of the fuel tank. We have the hardware to install the gas tank, which we are going to substitute one of these, which I believe is a 2.5 inch long bolt, for a 3 inch long bolt for installation. And then we have our fuel pump hanger and parts from Pro-Am that we got from Chris over there. So let me get all this stuff unboxed. I'm going to have to make some room on the back of the F350 workbench to lay all this stuff out, and then I will bring you back. All right, so here are all our parts for the gas tank. I did find the fuel tank straps in the box with all of the other stuff for the fuel tank. So with the fuel tank vent hose and vent and all that stuff. But let's start with the tank. So you've got the tank and the liner right here, and then the straps. And the straps are side dependent, so you got to make sure you got those in the right orientations. They will not go in the opposite way. We have the fuel tank mounting hardware. One of these bolts, which we're going to replace, at least temporarily, with a longer bolt, because it's going to make it easier for the gas tank to go in. Then we have the fuel tank sending unit, which is going to establish the level on your gauge. Now, I opened this box. It came with a locking ring. You'll notice we have a surplus of locking rings here. One there, two there, one there. This one didn't come with a gasket, but that's okay. We've got other gaskets. So we've got that. Like I just mentioned, we've got the fuel tank vent, and we've also got some clamps. We have the donut that is going to be for the fuel filler, which we are going to replace because this piece that's in here, I won't use it on one of these cars. They're prone to leaking, and I just don't want to deal with the callbacks on this. But if you look in here, we've got a couple of extra O-rings for both the sending unit and the hanger if you want to use those. I like using the square ones, but that's okay. There's also extra ones in this package. This came with the gas tank, so it comes with the locking collars and with some extra gaskets. We have these 4 square plugs, these plastic plugs that go in the bottom of the 3/4 inch frame members. This is one of those things that a lot of people overlook in the installation manual. They put their gas tank in and they forget these. These are to cushion the points at which the fuel tank sits on the rail right here. So I'll get back to those later when we go to put this in the car. We have our Pro-Am fuel pump hanger, which you can see has a 3/8 AN in and a 3/8 AN out, and the stock Ford connector. It has pigtails on it for a fuel pump. It also comes with the Z-hose and a pickup. Now, one thing you're going to... Oh, and it comes with the locking collar. One thing you're going to see me do is I'm going to take this pump that comes from Factory 5, and I'm going to take some rubber sheet and I'm going to cut a liner for the outside of it. If you don't do anything to hold this in place, what happens is that pump is smaller than the distance between the 2 side rails of the fuel pump hanger, and it won't be held secure. So you don't need a whole lot, but you do need something in there so that this fuel pump doesn't bounce around. So that's it on all the parts. When I come back into the shop tomorrow, I think we'll start the assembly of this, because I need to move the 25th anniversary car out of the way, get the Texas car up on the lift, and then we're going to put the fuel tank in the Texas car tomorrow. All right, everybody, next day in the shop and working on the fuel tank. So, what we're going to start with are these 4 caps. So each of these 4 caps is going to go in each one of these supports. So there's one here, one here, one in the front on the passenger side, and one in the front on the driver's side. So these will push partially in, and then we'll knock them in with the mallet, and that will seat them firmly. All right, so those are all in. Got those in the bottom. You can see that the bottom of the tubes here are now sealed off with those caps. It also provides cushion for when the gas tank goes up there in place. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to flatten out these tabs right here. So there's a tab on this side, there's a tab on the other side, the front, and then there's a tab on the front side of the driver's side. The back of the driver's side where the strap goes is fine, it's flat, you don't need to worry about it. But all of those other 3 locations, you're going to have to bend those flat. So we're going to go do that now. What I'm going to use is a pair of duck bills, and these are used in the sheet metal profession, guys that do air conditioning ducts and stuff like that. Again, since I'm a contractor, I'm in the trades, I have a pair of these. If you don't have a pair of these, you can actually take like a dolly or 2 hammers, 1 hammer on the bottom, and then tap the top until it's flat, do a hammer and dolly method. Or you can do a pair of pliers like Factory 5 suggests. My only problem with the pliers is that the pliers usually have teeth on them, and they're going to dig into the coating that's on here, and then you may experience some rust in the future. That's not to say that either of the other 2 methods that I'm suggesting won't crack the paint too. It's just, it's less likely. So decide which way you're going to do it, and I will bring you back just as soon as we get those flattened out. And the next thing we're going to do is actually put that tank in place, and I'll tell you why. Before I go on, since I'm working on another video that pertains exactly to this, I want to point this out because this is an often overlooked step in the assembly manual. It says fuel tank install. This is on page 177 of the particular assembly manual I'm working at. It says, at the locations on the tank where the tank straps come near the tank, use a pair of pliers and bend the bent parts flat. This is what they're referring to. If you don't bend these flat, the straps are going to be too short, and you're going to struggle, and you're going to moan and piss and whine that these don't fit. It's not the tank strap's fault, it's not the tank's fault, it's the operator's fault. So make sure that you do that before you go to put your tank in. All right, so here are the flanges, all flat now, or close to flat. I mean, they're not going to be perfect. You know, they were bent this way by a machine, and so you're going to get some ripples in them, but it's just that you want to get these as flat as you can so that it'll fit flush against the bottom of those supports that are on the chassis. So one is going to be right here, and one is going to be right here. So it really doesn't matter if this is a little bit bent or deformed over here. And then you want to be careful because this is, I don't know what they call it, kind of like, it's not spot welded, but it's heat fused. These 2 pieces of tank are heat fused together, and you can see the seam right here where the machine heat fuses them together. So you don't want to be bending this back and forth. That's why I like using the duck bills over the pair of pliers, or even using a hammer and dolly, because you're not concentrating all your pressure in one area. You're spreading it out over a wide area, and so you're less likely to have this split open, which to this point hasn't happened, but you always want to be aware of it. So I got those flattened out, and I'm going to put the tank in without the vent, without the fuel pump, and without the sender in it. And here's why I'm not going to put those in first. Doing them on the bench over there, I'm going to take you back over there and show you. The tank moves. So here you're trying to put those things in, especially the fuel pump, because the fuel pump, everything's bigger because we're running bigger tubes, and so you're going to find that it doesn't fit in quite as easily as a stock fuel pump hanger. And so you don't want to be fighting that on a surface that's moving as you're trying to do this. So we're going to put that, which is the sender, the fuel pump, and the vent all in after we get this in the car. So let me get that in place. I'll get it up on the jack, and then I'll show you how we're going to get everything in place. All right, you may find that one of the supports, it's usually these long ones, either this one or the one on the other side, is kind of bent in, and it doesn't want to let the tank sit in there. So grab one of these, Tanya Harding's, and don't be afraid to hit it. You're going to have to hit it pretty hard to get it to move that way. But I got it, I hit it maybe 3 times with some good force, got it to move, and now the tank will go up. I'll go ahead and I'll raise this up. And remember, you want these to sit pretty much in the center of where those straps are going to be. So when you get it up to a certain point, stop and make sure that it's centered. So you can see that now it's just got a little bit of clearance in there. And so now it's good to go. We'll go ahead, we'll get the straps in place, and then we'll start bolting this in. All right, so next we're going to bolt the tank in. The tank is going to go in with the 3/8 by, they're actually 2-inch. I misstated early in the video. They're 2 inches long bolts at the back of the gas tank. And so they give you washers, and it's never been clear to me where they want you to put those washers, but I've always put them under the tank straps that go in the front, because the way it goes in, it's nice to have that washer in so that the strap itself, when it's kind of stretching, doesn't pull the strap so close to the nut as you're tightening it down that you can't get the socket out. So that's why I've always done it that way, but it's not clearly laid out in the manual, so I'll give you that. Anyways, one other thing that we're going to do once we get this thing on the ground is we're going to end up taking this tab and we're going to cut it flush with the chassis, because we don't need it. This is actually back to the donor years when you could use a 94 and later gas tank because they mount different. There's actually a bolt that runs through from down here for the later tank straps. So if you're using the supplied tank straps from Factory 5, you don't need this upper bolt. If you order your own and you happen to get 94 and later tank straps, you will use this. If you're not using it, just cut it off, because it just makes the trunk aluminum go in so much easier. So once we get this all put in place, I'll cut this off before the trunk aluminum actually goes in for the final time. And then we'll touch it up with some paint. But now that I've got that in, I'm going to finish jacking up the gas tank, and then I'm going to crawl underneath, and then I'm going to get those front bolts in place, and I'll show you what we're going to do on the passenger side. I actually went and picked up, I was out, so I picked up a bunch of longer bolts in assorted flavors. So I've got some 3/8 by 2.5 and some 3/8 by 3-inch here. So I think these are both, nope, that's a 2.5. So I've got a 2.5 there, and I've got a 3-inch there. The 2.5 will probably work, but since this was about all they had left in the bins down at the home center, I grabbed them all. And I figured if I needed them later, at least I'd have them. So I'm going to get that up in the air, and we'll crawl under there, and we'll get those front bolts in. All right, the tank is in. Now remember, this one is just going to be temporary because you're going to have to take it out. You're going to have to take the bolt out to get the trunk floor aluminum to go in this spot, and then put this back in place. So it's not a huge deal, but just know that you're going to have to do that later. So I just tightened it so it's snug, and then we'll pull it apart. This one over here is tight. You don't have to worry about that one coming back out. So you're all good there. And then in the front, this is the bolt right here that it just helps if it's a little bit longer. For some reason, this strap just wants to be a booger every time. And so I ended up getting a 3/8 by 2.5-inch bolt for right here. And you can see I've got just a little bit of thread sticking out. This one can be a little bit of a bitch, but I managed to get it in, and there's just the slightest bit of thread sticking out of it, so it's going to be just fine. The nylock part of the nut is engaged, so I think we're good. And then that's it. Gas tank is in. So I think the next video will show putting the fuel pump in, the fuel sending unit, and then the vapor recovery, or the vent coming out of the gas tank. And I've got to go upstairs and see where the charcoal canister is, if we've got one with this complete kit. I think we do. So maybe we'll see about where we're going to put that too. Until then, if you're enjoying the content here, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that good stuff. Comment if you'd like. We'll see you all next time. Have a great day.